back to another episode of Let's Talk Real. I'm your host, it's Maggie, here with me is Carlos. How are you, Carlos?
Hey, good. You?
Good. So we're back for our part 2 of answering the top 20 questions you need answered before buying a home. So you were way over time last time, so we'll see how we do today. But as usual, our myth of the day, and today the myth is home inspection is pass or fail. If it passes, the home is perfect and no repairs. So this is very inaccurate to say, but I can see why people think that way. So a home inspection is optional, actually. And a lot of people don't even think about that because we highly suggest and encourage to be done, and it should be, right? But a home inspection is not pass or fail. It's actually optional. The bank does not require, unless you have a specific type of loan or program that may require an inspection type of one kind or another. Like one example, VA requires a termite inspection, and if there's well, they require a water test. But the home itself is actually not required in any loan type that I know of.
Nope.
Right.
No, there's some inspections that are required on certain loans, like the VA has the termite.
Or the water test.
Requires some inspections. Like I think that PHFA also requires termite. If I'm not mistaken.
And water test as well, if they use a well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So is it the programs or loans that may require a specific type of inspection, but not necessarily
not an overall inspection?
Yeah. And then one thing to think too is the home inspection is pass or fail to the buyer, not necessarily to a loan to go through. So it's really for the buyer to understand what the condition of the home is, see what the repairs required are, and then make a decision whether they want to negotiate repairs, they want to renegotiate value, or they want credits for it, or if they just want to back out altogether. So it gives that opportunity to the buyer to feel like they are protected if something doesn't go according to plan. No, the house does not mean the house is perfect, and by any means, even if the inspection report comes super clean, no issues, we never know. It could be moving into the house and the house something breaks. So there's only so much that it can do during a home inspection. They can't really open the walls, right, to see behind what's really happening. They can only test and see, signs of potential issues, but not necessarily 100%. That would be
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's it for the myth of the day. Hopefully that answers some questions from a lot of people out there. Going back to today's topic, we're gonna go back to our presentation, and we did the first 10, so we're gonna go for the next 10 today and getting started. So how can I keep track of all the homes I see?
That's all you.
Question. I was like, I didn't even look at these, to be honest, so we're gonna answer on the go. So there's different ways that we can do this. I keep a portal and that to all my clients. So in the MLS and also on my app that is linked to the MLS, where they can kind of mark all the properties that they've seen or that they liked, which usually they see the ones they liked. So that way they can always go back, right? It makes sense. So they always go back to the ones that they favorite, and they can keep track. Okay, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. So it's the
ones with the heart.
Yeah, all the ones with the heart. So that's the most simple way to do that. If the client maybe didn't do that and wasn't, tracking the properties that way, I can always go back to my database and see, okay, these are all the showings we have done so far between you and I, and then I can provide a list of the homes that we've seen that way as well. So that's my way technically to keep track. So I remember, what kind of homes you looked at, what did you say about each one. So I keep some notes as well to kind of, let me know what your idea of a perfect home is, so I can always make better recommendations the next time around. So that would be this one. So number 12, how many homes should I consider before choosing one?
That's all you too, man. I like this one. I like these slides.
Well, but I think this is me, but it's also you in a way.
Sure.
I think
Sure.
the first thing that you
Throw me in.
consider,
It's okay.
yeah, I will, because it is true. Like, yes, of course, you want to make sure that the house layout is gonna be the right layout for you and your family, the size, location, all those obvious things which I think we mentioned prior before when looking for a home, what things to consider. But really, like, there's no set numbers of homes that you should be looking at. If you see one home and that one happen to have everything you need, why continue looking, right? Unless there's a second one that you're also maybe interested in. Yes, I would highly suggest seeing everything you can see and then make a decision. But in today's market, you can't really afford to just like, oh, let me see what comes out next week, because homes are going to be gone. So
Absolutely. And it also matters on the numbers. You know what I mean? Like sometimes
that's
you
what I was
see
going to
one
say. You
house.
were part of it too.
Yeah, you see one house, you know, in this part of, you know, the town, and then you see a house in this part of town, and the taxes are lower on that one. So, you know, it's worth going to see it because your payment's going to be lower, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Either overall cost could be lower. So, you know, maybe it's worth checking that one out before making a full decision and looking at the numbers. And that's why I always tell, like, if you are uncertain about one house or another, I always reach out to Carlos and get estimated numbers for each, if that makes your decision easier. And in their case that maybe Carlos is not available to now is estimate, my estimates are not going to be nearly as accurate, but it will give you a rough idea, you know, of where you're going to be, just so you can go and check it out. Make sure that you're looking at homes that make sense financially, but also that fits all the check boxes, right? Or check all the boxes. Okay, I think that's it for this one. So 13, I found a home. What types of inspections are required? I'll let you answer from the loan perspective, and now add the other ones.
So from a loan perspective, the first thing is the appraisal, of course, you know, which is its own kind of inspection, but not a real inspection.
Yeah.
Hence the air quotes.
Yeah. It's an appraisal inspection, a bank inspection.
Yeah, it's an appraisal inspection.
Yeah.
But like I said, depending on the programs, like some programs will require different inspections, like termite, you know, on like HFA or like a VA will also require termite and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But more inspections are more on Nini's side.
Yes, yeah. So
the deeper ones. We'll go with the deeper
always definitely consider the home inspection, which the home inspection is everything from roof to basement. You know, they're gonna check plumbing, electrical. They're gonna check the condition of the roof, attic, joists. They're gonna visually inspect if there's any signs of termites, even if they don't do a termite inspection report, but they're going to still check if there's, you know, destruction of the wood itself that may be jeopardizing the structural foundation of the property, or structural integrity of the property, and other things like that. So the home inspection is really a very thorough, all home inspection. Now, if the house is located in a lot where you have a private septic, then we would have to consider doing a septic inspection, which I highly suggest never skipping that one, because it can be a very expensive repair if you don't do it and you end up buying it. And then let's say the septic, the ground itself, the absorption is just oversaturated, meaning it can no longer absorb any liquids from the septic. Then you need to start a brand new septic in a different location of the property. And then we run into issues that maybe there's no new location or there's not enough space. So they have to actually remove it, recondition the soil. I mean, there's so many things that could go wrong with septic. Even just installing a new one alone could cost $30,000 or more. So that is one that I never recommend skipping, no matter how competitive it gets. That one has to stay present. And then if the property has a private well, then you definitely, I would highly suggest getting a water test, unless the property already has a filtration system that includes UV, you know, everything. If it's a very robust system, then, you know, you can just get a simple water test and be done. But if it doesn't have anything and it does have a well, then I would suggest getting that, because then we can negotiate with the buyer, with the seller, about installing those filtration systems if they're required. The only other thing that could come wrong from a well inspection too is the flow rate. So if the flow rate of that well is low, that means that the water of the well is actually running low and it might have to be drilled further, or that well might be done and you might have to consider drilling a new one. And now we're talking an additional $7,000-8,000. So that can be pretty pricey too. So I've run into everything before.
I haven't, thankfully, I have not run into that one yet. A new well I have not run into.
A flow rate. I ran into a flow rate, a low rate before, and they even had sedimentation, like signs of black particles, which means it was at the very bottom of the well, like there's not enough water left. In this case, they were able to drill further, and that was just a couple $1,000s, but a couple $1,000s, right?
Yeah.
And they still had water on the well, but they had to drill an additional 10 feet to get to more water.
Wow.
Yeah, and then you have to bleach it, and so you reset.
And then you have to clean the water and all that stuff.
Exactly. So there's a process. So I would say definitely well and septic can be pretty pricey, and I would not suggest bypassing those two, unless again you did a flow test, it's fine, or maybe the house already has a nice filtration system, then you're fine too.
Yeah, I've dealt with septic issues, but never well issues to that extent. Usually it's just, the water or whatever, you know what I mean? And then you have to treat it, but nothing crazy. Yeah.
They can be in a day. I learned my lesson about the flow rate. A lot of people, I'll test the water. Yes, you can test the water, but usually when you test the water, if there is a very low flow rate, you should see signs of like, hey, that build up, that seeps on the bottom of the well. So the water test should give you a sight and an idea if that's happening or not. But sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it still has a little bit left, but not enough. Like the flow is very low. That's when you notice very low pressure on the sink and the shower, because there really isn't that much water coming in, through the well anymore. So that can be pretty dangerous.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah. And then we have termites. We already mentioned the VA requires, and then some programs like PHFA will require for any loan type. And I do believe those programs also require water tests for the wells. So, I already suggested anyway, but I would say if you have those programs or loan types, you would have to.
You're guaranteed to get it.
I know. Yes. And you can always just do other types of inspections, like the house has a pool, then you can do a pool inspection. If we are uncertain about insurability, or maybe there's a chance that the house might be on a floodplain and it's uncertain, or we don't know exactly, so we can make a contingent on insurance to make sure that the house can be insured, right? Because that could be another issue as well, especially nowadays with the roof situations that we're encountering. A lot of the houses that were built in the early 2000s are now nearing the death of the roof. But the end of life expectancy for that roof. So we're running into a lot of issues of old roofs and insurability by the companies out there. So we can do that too. And I think that's basically it, right? For inspections. There's many other kinds, but I feel like in general, those are the most common ones that we see that you can expect. So moving on. So number 14, what does the home inspector do? Well, I guess I'm going to answer this one too. This second half is on me, Carlos. That's not
I think so.
So I kind of went into this already, but I'm going to get more detailed then. So the home inspector, his job is really he's not going to fix anything. He's not going to be turning on anything that is not already connected, right? They're not allowed to just go in there and just, fix things or test things, or should say, test something that is not already connected. But if it's already, there's electric in the property, there's water running in the property, they're going to test everything they can that day. So to make sure that all the mechanicals and structure of the property are in order. And like I mentioned, it goes from roof to basement. So they usually start from the top or go to the bottom or vice versa. But they're looking for signs of deterioration, structural problems, and they're looking for plumbing issues, possible leaks, signs of leaking. They also even do thermal signs to make sure that there's proper insulation coming from the attic into the home. If they find any cold spots, that means there's not enough installation, so they have a little handy gun that they walk around with. They also do tests on the electricals to see if the outlets are ground properly, so they can identify if it's secured with ground. Make sure that the kitchen, bathrooms, garages, laundries, they have the GFCI outlets, which is those outlets that have a little breaker button.
That's what I was gonna say. I remember that when I bought my house, they had to get those replaced because I guess like the GFI outlets weren't working.
Yeah. So GFCI outlets are a big deal for especially government funded loans. So your VA, your USDA, your FHA, they're going to request. If there's no GFCI outlet in the kitchen and bathroom, unless the bathroom, they usually, it could be grandfathered in if it was done way before a certain day, which I have no idea what that is anymore. But they usually require GFCI to be installed to be up to code today for safety reasons. Laundry and garages as well, they do have to have a GFCI outlet. And then
yeah, I think we requested it from the inspection because the loan didn't require it.
Yeah, but yeah, and you can, because it is not a major deal. It can be a major deal if the house is actually that old and improperly wired, where there's no ground at all, which I've had that happen before. And we were buying with a VA loan, and we had to tell the seller, "Hey, you need to rewire the whole house properly," and they did it.
Ouch.
Yeah, not in this market, but they did.
I was gonna say, wow.
The seller's agent, I guess, didn't know about that, and so they listed as accepting all kinds of financing, including VA. That would definitely have to be a property that would have to be listed as a conventional, and it wasn't. So they took that, they took ownership of their mistake and took care of the wiring issue. But yeah, that can happen. So unless
That's
that is
crazy. I didn't know. I never had that either. Wow, you've had
I've still a fair share. That was
more issues than I have.
1930s home. They still had the outlets, laying down horizontally on the bottom of the trimming of the home. The bottom. I forget the name of the thing now, but it's the very. So it's definitely not up to date, because nowadays they're required to be, I guess, 16 inches off the ground to be,
And how much was the rewiring on that?
It was thousands. It was like, I think 6 something at the time.
Wow.
Yeah, they had to do it. What can I say? So yeah, so they would check on that. You see how important it is to do an inspection now, right? Little things that could be not so little that you can catch during a home inspection. But I think the biggest thing about home inspector and what they do is really educate that buyer, because they will teach that buyer on how to properly maintain the house, everything they should be taking care of, how they should be doing it, how often they should be doing it. And it's really so they don't have future issues within their home. And that is really one of the most priceless portions of doing a home inspection, is their education that the buyer is going to receive from that home inspector. And then again, why it's so important to have a good home inspector doing the home inspection. Because some of them will do their thing and leave and provide a report. And some of them will actually tell you, hey, this is what you should do. Look, this is how this works. Or you should be changing this every other month, or whatever it be. So it's very, very important to have a home inspection done.
And I think that also, like some programs, like how PHFA, they require you to take like a course. I think they go into that a little bit as well.
They do.
When you take their course, they talk about home inspection and what to look for and how to deal with it and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, it is true. And one thing to think about home inspectors is that in this competitive market, one thing that you can do is, if you know that a property is going to be very competitive, you can just plan ahead, and before you even put an offer, do a walkthrough inspection with a home inspector. That way they can do basically a full-blown inspection without issuing a report. And then they're just going to tell you all their findings of the issues within the home. And then you put your offer already aware of what to expect. And then you feel more confident on either waiving inspections on your offer, or already maybe putting like, oh, I'm only concerned about the HVAC because the inspector already told you it looks like it's dated or it needs a repair or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I think you mentioned that in one of the previous episodes.
Yeah, on how to be more competitive. So yeah, I would say that's definitely a way to use it, inspect it at your favor.
Oh, good memory. Last time we were talking, we were like, you can remember anything, and now you're like remembering.
You
the
learned,
episode you
Carlo.
put
Look at that. You remembered.
it in. Wow.
That's awesome. Hopefully people listening are remembering too. Okay, so next one is, do I need to be there for the home inspections? 100% yes, if you can. I would highly suggest to do so. Again, for the same reasons I just said, you're going to learn so much about the house. You're going to understand how to maintain it. You're going to be there and learn from the inspector. But if for some reason you cannot, don't stress it. The report is super detailed, and they usually put tons of pictures in there. And they will make recommendations on the report as well. And me as an agent, if my clients are not able to be there, I'll make sure that I am there, at least so I can, pick up here and there what's missing, or even do the video with my client so the inspector can talk to them and explain their findings, which I've done that before. So
yeah, I think that was cool. That like when we did our inspection, the inspector was there and he would point out the stuff. He'd be like, I'm gonna put this in the report, but look, this is what I'm gonna say when you see this. So I thought that was pretty good.
That way you can
learn a lot.
kind of understand, right?
Yeah, you learn a lot. Definitely.
For sure. Number 16, what are home warranties and should I consider them? Well, this is yes, I usually talk about this, but is that something that come on your end ever? No, right?
Mm-mm.
No. So a home warranty, and I'm going to explain this using the car insurance as a terminology, right? So you have a car insurance, and then if you have a car accident, you have to file a claim, explain what happened. You may or may not be at fault, and then you may or not be fully covered, and then you have to pay your deductible. And usually your deductible is, I don't know, $500, $1,000, right? A homeowner's insurance, which is what you're required to have when you buy a house, works similarly. But usually with a home, it's not like you're getting into an accident, right? You're not gonna hit your house with another house. So it's a little different. We're talking more about natural things. So a heavy rain maybe has damaged your roof, or a tree fell over, or a car ran into your house. That can happen. I don't know, something more like of those terms, or you just literally had a random leak in the house. That then usually those get a little more tricky because they have to do a claim and an inspection, an evaluation to see investigation to see exactly why there was a leak. And if you were at fault in any capacity, they usually don't cover. But if it was something that it just happened, maybe you're covered depending on your insurance coverages. Home warranty is a little different because they usually it's much more elastic, expensive. It's very inexpensive, I should say. You buy it at the close when you buy the house. You can get it for 1 or 2 years. And they have a list of items that are covered no matter what. And then if something happens that is covered in that list, then you just contact them and open up your claim. You can use any contractor you want. And then the contractor does the repair. They get paid by the home warranty. And then you just pay the deductible, which is usually $75 to $100. So it's just like additional. And usually the things they cover are also additional to stuff that is covered on your homeowner's insurance. So it's usually things that are not covered. Like you had a roof leak, but not because of a heavy rain or because of a bad hail storm or whatever it be. It literally just because the roof is old. And then that is covered by the home warranty, but that's not covered by a homeowner's insurance. So things like that would be what they call home warranty covers. And I would highly suggest for anybody buying a house, to be honest, because unless you buy a brand new construction, because they usually offer that as part of the builder package. But if you're buying a used home, a little older home, then I would highly suggest, even if you do home inspections, because again, you could do a full-blown home inspection, everything is good. As soon as you move in, the HVAC stops working, or starts a new roof leak that it wasn't there before, or whatever it be, right? So a home warranty covers those items in addition to your homeowner's insurance. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Good. I always like to use the car analogy because then people are like, oh, nice. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's home warranty. And yes, I would definitely suggest getting it if it's your budget. And I would say it's around $500 for 1 year on average.
That's what I've seen normally.
Yeah, and it varies based on each company, depending which company you get it from. But I would say that's fair, like 500 for 1 year, and you can get it for 2 years if you want to. But it has to be at the close, so it has to be coming out of your closing proceeds, or you can get it like within a week after closing. But it has to be done at that point. Otherwise, they don't cover everything because then you already know the issues with the house. Yeah. Alrighty, so number 17, how do property taxes work? Oh, that one I'm gonna let you answer.
Oh, thank you. So nice of you.
Chime in as needed.
So the taxes really for the loan purposes is just like the taxes impact your loan more than the price itself normally, because $10,000, it's about $63 a month, because you're taking the 10,000 and you're dividing it by the 360 months that your loan is going to have. Whereas the taxes, you're taking, say, $1,000 and dividing it by the 12 months. You know what I mean? Because the taxes are paid annually, so your taxes are gonna your taxes are gonna impact you by like $83 a month. So that's why when we're talking in the previous slide about, you know, how many houses should I look at? Well, sometimes you see a house, you know, and it's relatively within budget, but the taxes are astronomical, and now you don't qualify for that house.
Yeah, exactly. And then you should definitely even start considering changing areas if that area as a whole has higher taxes on average.
Correct. Because then you can find a house that's a little bit more expensive than what you were budgeted for, but the taxes are super low on it, and now that house qualifies.
Exactly. Both houses could be exactly $200,000, but if one has $5,000 taxes a year, one has $3,000. Now the difference in the payments is what, $100 and some difference?
166.
Yeah, there it goes. So it's substantial. For some people, that's a deal breaker, you know, depending on
especially when you have programs that you have DTI requirements, you know, like some things it's just like, oh, I don't feel comfortable paying this. But other things is like, yeah, no, you can't afford this.
Yes, yeah. On paper, right? Because then people's like, yeah, I can't afford that.
Let's not go there. This is not a non-QM1.
Right. You may be able to, but don't pay for it.
Yes. This is not creative financing.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's exactly it. And then also, like, to understand a little more about the property taxes as a whole, every township has a different what's called millage rate. And then that millage rate is what the township uses to calculate the taxes for the properties in that area. So when a client comes to me and say like, oh, what are the taxes for Hershey? I'm like, well, so we have to look at what the millage rate is for the township that the house is located, because I don't know if Hershey has 2 townships. I think it's just Derry. But like there's some cities that may have more than 1 township as part of that. And then once, like Mechanicsburg is an example, you have Silver Spring Township, then you have Hampton Township. The Hampton is actually one of the lowest township millage rates. So the taxes overall is super low. But you go to Silver Spring Township, it's double the millage rate. So the houses on average have way more higher taxes, right?
Absolutely.
So talking to your real estate agent also will help you kind of like maybe focus on areas that we know to have lower millage rates as a whole. So you can, you know, focus on properties that have lower property taxes as a overall. Good. So now you understand both sides. Financing on my side. Number 18. Do I really need homeowners insurance? Yes.
Yes, that is, if you're getting a loan, you definitely need homeowners insurance. I would say some people, they opt out of it once they no longer are financing the property, you know, they no longer have a lien on the property. I've seen it where they don't have homeowners insurance, especially in Florida. I see that a lot. And then a hurricane comes through, and then it's like, oh man, I should have paid the insurance.
Oh no. Yeah, but here in PA, I do think it's required, right? For any loan, any property being purchased with a loan.
Any state that you have a loan on is going to require homeowners insurance. Yeah, it's going to require that you at least have enough coverage to cover your loan.
Yeah. And I believe that is the lender's insurance.
Yes.
But there's an owner's policy as well, but that is a little different.
It's not the lender's, the owner thing is title. I'm like,
I'm
wait,
thinking title
what?
insurance. Yeah, no, I'm confusing it. We're talking homeowners insurance. Look at me. But yes,
We were
homeowners.
doing so great. You will remember episodes from before, the
We just
name of
talked
the
about
episode
it,
and
title
everything.
insurance, and now it's even
And
my
now you're
mind.
like, wait.
But yes, so homeowners insurance for sure required for any property being purchased from the bank.
Yes, any property that you're financing needs to have insurance, whether it's creative financing or, conventional financing, whatever it is, it's going to need to be insured.
I need a loan. Yeah, and when I do get my clients on a contract, usually I will have them obtain quotes from different companies so they can compare. And in here
Yeah.
said, so how do I get the lowest rate? I would say if you bundle, and you've probably seen plenty of commercials talking about bundling. So that's what it means is you're getting now a home that you're buying and bundling together with your car insurance that you have. And they usually give you a discounted rate because you're doing both with the same company.
15 minutes can save you 15% or more on car insurance.
We're gonna ask for some credits from Geico now.
We're gonna start having some sponsors here.
Sponsorships. We're open to it. Affiliated services. Yeah, so I would say bundling and then just checking with multiple companies so you can actually get the better quotes because they will vary. They will vary very much so from company to company. And depending on the house too, that varies because, the age of the home, location, there's any sort of nearby lakes and stuff that could actually affect that too.
Structure, like if it's brick or if it's stucco or whatever it is.
It has a fence, it doesn't. Yeah, so if there's dogs on the property or no dogs, what kind of dogs?
Pool, no pool.
Yeah, pool's another big one. With a fence or no fence on the pool.
Yeah, even bigger.
Yeah, so there's a lot of variables, so you definitely want to make sure you're getting quotes to compare and get the better numbers for you when you get in the contract, for sure. Okay, number 19, I'm ready to make an offer. How do I determine the initial offer? So we did cover this, on previous episodes for like how to make a competitive offer, or even how to get started with the buying process, and I think we got to this point too. But in here, it's like really understanding your finances. And it goes back to talking to Carlos from the very beginning, having your pre-approval ready, and understanding what your costs estimates were back then. So when you're ready to put an offer, we can run numbers for that specific house. And then you're going to get a better understanding. Okay, if I make this offer, what are the numbers? Do I feel comfortable with these numbers? And do I have wiggle room if I need to compete to offer more? So really talking to Carlos and running those estimates, I would say it's the way to determine the offer itself.
Right. Do I want to put a gap insurance is another big one. Can I cover some of the closing costs for the seller to make my offer stronger? It's another big one that I've seen. Going over,
the purchase price.
Yeah, going over on the purchase price above asking.
Yeah.
And putting an appraisal gap or no appraisal gap, do I need seller's assist?
Yeah.
How do I work around the seller's assist?
Knowing your financial conditions from the beginning with us when you first start is really going to help this part when you're ready to put an offer much, much easier and quicker because then you already know what to expect, and we can make a decision based on the situation. So how do you determine your initial offer? I would say if there's competing offers, we're just going to go the route of how competitive can we get based on and if there's no competing offers, it's okay, what do we want to try to get, to give you the best terms as a buyer. So I would say it depends on the situation, and that's how we're going to approach it. But just really knowing from the very beginning what your numbers are, and feeling comfortable with that helps a lot at this point. So we can rerun numbers just for that house and kind of strategize what the terms would be for this competing offer.
Yep.
And I think now we're going to go to our last one. Do I need an attorney to buy a home? I get this question a lot, and I get it. When you go online, it says a little bit of everything, but it does vary by state.
It does.
Some states are attorney states, so we call it, and some states are title company states. And Pennsylvania happens to be a title company state, which means you do not need an attorney to buy a house. In fact, you probably want to avoid that because they're super expensive. A title company is much, 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 much more affordable. And there are some pros for that. We can actually close much quicker. The process seems to be a little more expedited because the title company has ways already.
The title company already has an attorney also.
Yeah, they
That
have
goes through like
to
when
do-
there are any complications, title company usually has an attorney they can go through to make sure that the client's gonna be okay with that, with the
Exactly.
property.
Yeah, and they are just licensed to do that alone. Like they are licensed to do real estate title transfers or whatever be related to real estate. So the process is already kind of systemized, where it makes it very, very easy and quick to close. While states that are led by attorney closings, you're playing with that attorney's schedule basically. And I always like to use New York as an example because I think it's too funny that you put a property on contract, and the closing day, let's say it's May 30th, but it says at or around May 30th, which literally could be 30 days before, 30 days after. So really, we don't know like when you're closing, and that's pretty scary. I would think, like, not knowing that, not having that certainty. In Pennsylvania, we don't do that. It's either at or before. So usually we try to stick to the at as much as possible. Maybe we can do it a couple days prior, but this very much so like, okay, this is it. And again, because we can use title companies, we save the clients a lot of money. We're talking a few $1,000s, saved up. We have a very good state that actually issues all pre-done contracts that we actually have to abide by those. And they are made by Pennsylvania Association of Realtors attorneys, and they're designed to protect the consumer. That way, there's no in other states, the attorney can draft a new contract with whatever terms. Every time is a different contract. In Pennsylvania, no, everybody abide by the same rules. So it's pretty, that's why it makes this such a streamlined process using the title company.
Yeah, and if the attorneys are on vacation, then you have to wait for one to come back. If the other one is going on vacation, like I've seen it get pushed out 3 months because there's different,
Yeah, out of the country for a whole 20 days. I'm like, okay, well, we'll wait for you.
We really don't have a choice, do we?
We don't have a choice because that one attorney taking care of the file. I had that happen with a seller the seller was selling in New York, moving to Pennsylvania. So I was handling the purchase, and we almost lost the house because she was looking, she needed to sell her house in New York to buy the house.
Right.
And delayed 35 days on the sale because of the attorney unavailability. And then we almost lost the house here. So yeah, it can be pretty stressful when dealing with different states. But in Pennsylvania, thank goodness, very streamlined state. We use title companies for everything. Unless there's a specific situation that we have to use an attorney, maybe a probate situation or anything like that. But for the actual transfer of real estate to a new buyer, it's all title company.
Yeah.
And that's
PA is great.
That's it. Thank you. There you go. That's Carlos. Yay.
Oh, look at that. Thank you.
So that was our top 20 questions you should have answered before making a decision to buy a home. I think it covers quite a bit. It's actually a pretty good.
I think it covered a lot.
I know. Everything we ever spoke about plus a little more. So pretty good. If you guys have any additional questions, please let us know. Our contact information is scrolling to the bottom as always. We are here to help you, and we're happy to answer any future questions. Thank you, guys.
To the next one.
And to the next one.
Like, follow for more. Share.
Okay. There you go, Carlos. Good job.